Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Let's let a few people get online. I am trying something new today. I have started with StreamYard, and I'm supposed to be able to go live on most of my platforms. Should see you on Instagram, my Facebook personal page, and my Mommy Mango business page. And then I have a separate camera up for TikTok. So we'll see how this works today. I am Regine Mora. I go on all my platforms by the name of Mommy Mango, and I'm a mom of four who struggled really badly with deep core weakness. And because of my deep core weakness, I had really bad, debilitating back pain. I also had leaking, and I had just this really stretched out mommy tummy look. And I really wanted to do something about that, so I did. And I've been helping moms ever since. I helped myself and have helped thousands of moms ever since. And today we are going to go over the topic of to sit up or not to sit up. If you see my short videos, you'll see a lot of times I'll say, don't do sit-ups, do this instead. Or how sit-ups have made my mommy tummy worse, or they made other people's mommy tummy worse. Do this instead. And I had somebody ask me on maybe YouTube, okay, I'm not trying to be what did they say? They said, I'm not trying to be rude, but what's the big deal with sit-ups? And I want to go into that today because that's a really good question. And to start off, I want to start off with a quick story. There was a lady who came in to do my exercises. She came to find me because she was like, "Hey, I have a huge problem. I did CrossFit hoping to get abs of steel, and instead, I got a pointier belly." She was super upset because she had worked so hard to get her core back together after having babies. But instead, and she did hardcore, like CrossFit is hardcore. She did hardcore work, and what she got was a pointier belly. So we're going to go into that because I don't want you to have a pointier belly. I don't want you to work hard and make your mommy tummy worse. And so I'm going to go into why that happens and what to do about it. And then at the end, I'm going to do a quick exercise with you to help you engage your transverse abdominis, which is like your waist trainer muscle, that muscle that wraps around, cinches you in. We're going to do that exercise together, okay? So, hi Natalie Pirani. Thank you so much. I see you said I love your shorts. That's so awesome. I'm always pumping out shorts, but I'm really trying to get better at going on live so I can really dive a little deeper into why I say the things that I say and make the claims that I make on my shorts because I want you to be confident in what you're doing and how you're using your body so that you can become the strong mom that I know that you want to be. Okay. So I'm going to start out with this balloon demonstration because when it comes down to whether an exercise will help you or hurt you, it's basically about pressure management. And I think a balloon really helps to understand what's going on. All right, let's make it about this big. Now, you might be on here wondering, is this particular demonstration or what I'm talking about, does it apply to you? Are the exercises on my shorts, on all of my platforms, does it apply to you? These exercises apply to you if you have a stretched out mommy tummy, if it's loose, weak, if you're experiencing back pain, if you still look pregnant, months, years after you've had a baby. And when I say months, I probably more like years because it takes time for our tummy to go back together after we've had our babies. But if you are still looking more pregnant years after having a baby, this is for you. If you have leaking, back pain, any of that, this is for you. Okay. If you have diastasis recti, this is for you. I had diastasis recti. That was the first thing that really triggered me. Like, what is diastasis recti? And I started digging deep into that, and that's how I started getting all these certifications and learning more about this and working with women. Okay, so we're talking about sit-ups. Oh, and here's a quick test to know if these exercises on my platforms are really helpful for you. I want you to lean back, look down. If you see bulging or doming coming up through your midline, Okay, if you see bulging or doming coming up through your midline, that's diastasis recti, ab separation that occurs very naturally through pregnancy. But after we have our babies, it really should tighten up to be at least 2 finger widths apart. If you don't know about that, jump into my free exercises. Look at the links in my bio. I have, you can jump into my Mommy Mango app, do some personal assessments if you don't know what I'm talking about. And we can talk about that another time as well. Okay, but if you lean back, and you look down. No, I'm not touching the chair or anything. Lean back. You can do the standing or sitting. Look down. If you see bulging coming up through your midline, or when you lean back to do like a sit up, you can't keep your abs flat. They just bulge forward like a bread loaf. Then this talk is for you. Okay. All right. So to sit up or not to sit up? That's the question. All right. So during pregnancy, our tummy can get pretty big, all right? Obviously. The pressure increases on the inside, and after we have our baby, the baby comes out, we are often left with a very stretched out mommy tummy, okay? And then after we have the baby, we go online and we Google, how can I get my abs back together? And they tell us sit ups, sit ups. When I was looking for this information years ago, like 9 years ago, it would say sit ups, planks, burpees. Those were the things to do. Okay. And then you have somebody coming to me, like I said earlier in the testimonial, a lady came to me and she said, I did CrossFit, and then instead of having abs of steel, I got a pointy belly, and it was very sit up heavy. There were lots of sit ups in that program, V sits, and things like that. Why could they cause a problem? Okay, so when you have a baby, the baby fills up everything in here. Everything gets stretched out. All of this gets stretched out. All right, but then when you do sit ups, I'm going to draw like a six-pack muscle here. Okay, we're going to make it look like, okay, I'm not the best artist, but let's pretend like these are your six-pack muscles. All right. It's horrible. Okay, so this is my six-pack. All right. So the six pack or the rectus abdominis, that's a flexion muscle that helps you bend, okay? And that's why sit-ups are great for getting those six-pack abs on the front. All right. And there's nothing wrong with having six-pack abs. However, when you have stretching all the way around, okay, and you want to tighten up your waistline this way, how is it going to work if you're just focusing on the front of the abs, the rectus abdominis, that crunches you this way? Okay. Now, there's nothing wrong with working on the rectus abdominis or the six-pack muscles, but if you're trying to cinch your waistline in this way, this muscle in the front is not what does that. The muscle in the front helps you flex forward. Okay. Not only that, but if your corset muscle underneath, because see, you have 4 layers of abdominal muscles. You have the six-pack muscles. You have, which is the rectus abdominis. You have your obliques on the side, which comes in your waist this way and this way, kind of cinching you in this way and helping to flatten. But you also have your deepest core muscle that looks like a waist trainer. It wraps around your waist and literally cinches you in, cinches your waistline in this way. But then after you have your baby, somebody tells you, or you find a YouTube video that's supposed to be for rehabbing your core, and they're telling you to do sit-ups. All right. So how many, and you can put this in the comments. Thank you so much for the hearts on TikTok. I see them all coming up. Thank you so much. It lets the algorithm know that we're talking about something that's actually helpful. Thank you. So if you have 4 layers of abdominal muscles and you're doing sit-ups, that works your flexion muscle, which is your six-pack muscles. What are we doing anything with the other muscles? You have 4 layers, but you're doing sit-ups, which only works the front, the six-pack muscles. So we're just kind of neglecting all the other muscles there. Okay. And how do you know if your sit-up is only focusing on your six-pack, or how do you know that you have weakness on the inner layers, like the transverse abdominis that wraps around the internal obliques? How do you know that the transverse abdominis that cinches your waist in is not strong enough to do a sit up. Here's how you know. Here's a test to know if any exercise is working for you or against you. Okay. Like with the sit up, if I lean back and I'm doing my sit ups, if I look down and I see excessive bulging, and when I say excessive bulging, I mean when I press my midsection, if I see bulging coming up through my midline, and when I press it, it feels very firm because there's so much pressure coming in through the front of the abs. Okay. If I feel a lot of pressure there, I lean back, I'm doing a sit up, and I see bulging coming up through my midline, and I feel it and it feels very firm. Okay. Or I see my midsection here is bulging forward. I can't keep it flat when I'm doing a sit up. That means that that exercise is not quite right for you yet. Okay. And that is because your deeper core muscle, your transverse abdominis that wraps around, I like to call it the corset muscle, it's supposed to cinch you in this way. If you do a sit up and you lean back and your transverse abdominis, in essence, isn't strong enough, you're going to get bulging because your transverse abdominis isn't strong enough to hold it in. A sit up would be appropriate for you if you can do a sit up and still keep your abs flat by using that transverse abdominis, that corset muscle that cinches your waistline in. If you can do a sit up and keep your abs flat like that, then it's fine because that means your deep core is strong enough to handle that. But if you're seeing excessive doming, bulging, let me get my other prop here if I can find it. I have a somewhere in here. Let's see. Oh, I found it. I call this my diastasis recti. Okay. So here you have connective tissue that connects the six pack muscles together at the midline. So if it is stretched out, it's called diastasis recti. You're supposed to have this kind of thin line of separation here, but when we have babies, sometimes it stretches out and it becomes something wider like this. If when you lean back, you see that pop up. You see how it's supposed to be flat. If you lean back and it pops up like that, that's diastasis recti. Okay. And so you want to be careful when you're doing exercises. If that is popping up and it feels very firm, then that exercise, you might not be strong enough with your deep core to do that exercise. If that makes sense, please say yes in the chat. I am um, getting out of practice doing these lives, but I really want to go deeper because I want you to understand for yourself if a particular exercise is good for you or not. And I often say in my shorts that awesome. I see that people are definitely understanding. That's great. If not, definitely ask questions. Let me know, and we will. Awesome. Yes. Thank you, Natalie, for responding. Thank you. Let's see. Haynes. I have a hernia. Are sit-ups okay? That's a great question. I'm going to actually answer that after I'm done with this. Yes, yes, makes sense. Tessie tofu. I love that. And I love tofu. But anyway, yes. So yes, I'm having that problem after abdominal hysterectomy. Okay, yes, those are great questions. What is safe? What helps? Okay, awesome. These are great questions. So what you want to know is to be able to test for yourself what exercise is right for you or not. That's why I'm going over this now, because generally when I give my shorts, when you see my shorts on my platforms, I'm doing 2 lives here, so that's why you see my eyes going back and forth. When I give my shorts, I let people know, hey, sit-ups aren't the best. This one is better. Okay. And that doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but it's a general rule, especially if you're just getting started strengthening your deep core. If you have deep core weakness, most likely sit-ups aren't going to be appropriate for you in the beginning because your deep core, your transverse abdominis, remember we have 4 layers of abdominal muscles and they all need to be in balance. And if we're just doing sit-ups and working the front of the abs without getting the deeper layers of the core that cinches in this way, then we're going to have problems because they're not balanced with each other. All right. And when it comes to any exercise you're doing, somebody said here, what helps? I forget who it was that said what helps. Oh yes, user 7451627 you. How do you know what helps? So we're going to go into an exercise that we're going to do. A lot of the exercises that you'll see on my platforms, I am trying to specifically target the deeper core muscles, especially the transverse abdominis, the one that wraps around and cinches your waistline in. My free exercises that you can get in the link in my bio, wherever it is on the platform that you're on, those free exercises are really geared towards strengthening the deeper core muscles that cinch your waistline in so that we can bring them back in balance with the rectus abdominis, the six pack muscle, and they can all work together harmoniously. Okay. But when it comes to knowing what's right for you, here's like 3 tips that you want to just pay attention to when you're doing exercises because everyone's strength level is different. So I really can't give a blanket statement, though I try to be super cautious when I'm doing my shorts. That's why I say stop doing sit-ups. That advice honestly may not be for everybody, but it's a safe precaution if your deep core isn't strong enough to handle a sit-up. Okay. But here are 3 things I want you to look for. If you're doing any move and you see excessive doming to where when you press it, it feels very firm, like it's stretching almost beyond its capacity, that's not right for you yet, or you're not doing them properly. That's why in my 8-week core challenge, my paid program, I make sure that my ladies are doing the exercises properly. Sometimes I have to put some eyes on and visualize, see the video of what they're doing so I can make sure they're doing it properly. But you can assess this for yourself, okay? You really can. You just make sure that when you're doing an exercise, it's not bulging out at the midline so much that you feel tension. I don't want to scare you from exercising. If you see a little bulging, that's not going to kill anything. All right. It's not going to do anything. Like with the balloon, if I were to, if it feels soft, like to the touch, like this, you know that the balloon isn't full to capacity. It's not going to stretch it beyond capacity. But let's just tighten it up. Let's tighten it up. But if it feels firm to the touch, it's starting to stretch beyond capacity. That's kind of what we're talking about here at the midline. You want to make sure that when you're doing a move, it doesn't feel so firm, like the bulging in the midline isn't super firm. Now, if you get a little bulging, don't freak out. It's okay as long as it's soft. It's not about to push beyond its capacity. I hope that makes sense. So that's one thing you want to look out for. If you're doing a move, also you want to make sure you're not getting generalized doming. Like if your tummy pops up like a bread loaf, look at people doing sit-ups online. Especially moms, I'll see them doing sit-ups. I'll look at their stomach when I look at through the shorts, and I'm looking, can they keep their abs flat like that when they're doing a movement? Or is it bulging out like this? You see that? You see how it's bulging out while I'm leaning back? Or can they keep it flat when they lean back? If they can keep it flat when they're doing that exercise, that shows that the deeper core muscles that flattens the tummy is strong enough to handle that movement. But if they're doing it and they're getting all this bulging, that means their deeper core muscle that holds it flat isn't strong enough for that yet. Okay, so I'm hoping that makes sense. Another thing you want to pay attention to is leaking. Don't do exercises that cause you to leak. We need to do some deeper work down there to make sure your pelvic floor is part of your deep core. All that is connected. That's why the exercises that I share with you and that I have in my programs, that's why when you do them, not only does it flatten your tummy, but it also helps your back pain and helps your pelvic floor because all those muscles are deep core muscles and they're connected. Okay. The last thing I would say that you want to watch out for an exercise is you want to make sure that you're not getting back pain during or after. If you're getting back soreness, that might mean something's not quite right. Because if that muscle that wraps around and cinches you in is not strong, but it's loose, it's not supporting your back. Okay? It's not supporting your back. And there could be other things that be causing the back pain too, even like a loose pelvic floor or a very tight pelvic floor can cause back pain, but they're all still connected. All right. All right. Now, before I go into answering this question about umbilical hernia and hernia, I want to do what I promised, and that is show you a quick exercise that will target your deep core muscle. This is kind of a simplified version of what I do for my 8-week core challenge, ladies, in my paid program. And I'm giving you just a tidbit of that. It gets deeper because I like to make it more personalized for everyone's situation. But this is a general, like, starting place that you will really feel the difference. And if you do this every day for 3 weeks, you will start to notice the difference. Okay. All right. So I want you to sit up nice and tall in your chair. You can do the standing. Standing is actually, in my program, we progress you. So we might start this lying down. That's the easiest version. And then we'll sit you up. That's a little more advanced. Then we'll stand you up. Then we'll do this in a We do this in different versions of this to progress you so that you can continue strengthening and flattening your tummy. But with this, what I want you to do is um, sit up nice and tall, like somebody's pulling you up through the top of your head. Okay. Now I want you to pretend as though, let me try this. I have a different analogies because everyone responds differently, but this one I think is the most popular. And that is pretending as though you're putting on a tight pair of jeans. Okay. So you're putting on a tight pair of jeans and you're gonna pretend as though you're zipping up the zipper, but you don't want to get your skin caught down there. Okay. I know this sounds weird, but I'm your coach right now. Trust me. Okay. So, what we're trying not to do is just suck in our belly button. All right. We're trying to start from the bottom and work our way up. Okay. And I can explain that on another day. But for now, trust me, pretend as though you're putting on a tight pair of jeans and that you're trying to zip up the zipper from here to the belly button without getting your skin caught. And then I want you to hold that. Make sure your ribs aren't flared up, but that everything is flat from here to here. You're trying to flatten this out. All right, from the bottom up. Okay, so let's relax. Sit up nice and tall because having tall posture, and that's why this is a part of my program, is posture because the flattening deep core muscle is a postural muscle. It helps you stand upright. So when you lengthen up, pretend like somebody's got your hair and pulling it straight up at the top, and your spine is going up straight, it flattens out your tummy because that's what that muscle does. Okay? All right? So now nice and tall, sit up nice and tall. Pretend as though you have on that tight pair of jeans. Now you're trying to zip up. Let me get a little closer so you can see what's going on here. We're going to try to zip up from the lower part, and I want this to be flush with your ribs. I want to see your ribs out jutting just like this, okay? And I want you to hold it for 6 seconds. Hold that for 6 seconds and relax, and then do that 10 times, okay? Tell me how that feels. All right? Tell me how that feels. And umbilical hernia. Now, diastasis recti, or stretching in the abdomen, happens here at the midline when we're pregnant. Okay, it's normal, natural. I've had people ask, how can you prevent it during pregnancy? You can't. You just restore it after pregnancy. Some people will restore naturally. Some people need a little help with exercises. That's why I have my whole core rehab program, the 8-week core challenge. But during pregnancy, you need more space. Everything stretches out. It goes out, out, right? That's why this is all stretched out. Keep stretching it. Now, this midline will stretch so that it can make room for baby. That's called diastasis recti. Diastasis means separation. Recti means referring to the rectus abdominis. So it's separation of the rectus abdominis. It's not a separation as in like tearing. It is a separation as in stretching of the midline tissue. Okay. And this connective tissue stretches, but sometimes you get a hole. A hole is a hernia, right? So they're caused by about the same thing. Again, it's a pressure issue. When the pressure is too much inside, you get a lot of stretching, right? Because the pressure is increasing. So you can get stretching of the midline tissue, or sometimes you get a hole. And when you get a hole behind the umbilical area, that's an umbilical hernia, okay? And lots of moms have come through my 8-week core challenge with that issue. When it comes to umbilical hernia, you want to go to your provider because they'll let you know if it's something that's problematic or not. I was just coaching with a lady a couple weeks ago, and she was saying that she has a couple of hernias. One was around the umbilical area, one was a little bit higher, and her doctor was saying that she only needed one repaired. One was problematic, but the other one wasn't. So sometimes it's problematic, sometimes it's not. So what you're going to want to do are exercises like the ones I give you, because something like a sit up, if you're getting extra pressure coming through the midline, when you're doing that, if you are getting bulging, doming, if you have an umbilical hernia, you're getting doming at the midline where it's like boop, popping out, that's not good for your hernia because it can stretch that hole more, right? Stretch that mid section more. So what you're going to want to do are deep core exercises. And the ladies that go through my program are doing deep core exercises, focusing on the deepest core muscle, the transverse abdominis that cinches the waistline in and holds it flat. What that's going to do is that's going to strengthen the tissue of the midline, and it can actually kind of shrink your hernia a bit. And doesn't usually make it go away, because hernia is a hole and that's hard to really make go away. But what can happen is that tissue of the midline, as you do deep core exercises, this tissue gets stronger. So if you have diastasis recti, that means it'll can kind of close up, and or it will just thicken to where it's strong enough to hold the contents flat. And if you have a hernia present in that area, it's going to strengthen around that hole, making it can kind of tighten it up some, or at least it can keep it from getting worse, and it can flatten this tummy still because you're tightening up all those deep core tissues that actually flatten your tummy. Okay, and that's why those deep core exercises, not the superficial core where you're just working on the six-pack muscles, those deeper core exercises are really going to help tighten up this midline tissue, tighten and flatten the tummy, also support the back. So for those with umbilical hernia, this talk that I gave today is very important for you because you're going to want to make sure you're not doing exercises where you see excessive bulging coming up from the midline. You want to be able to hold your abs flat with that exercise that I just showed you. You want to engage your transverse abdominis before you do your sit up. And if that's why sometimes, like, I'll show you like how to transition into sit ups. I might say, now engage your transverse abdominis, put on those tight jeans, pretend like you're zipping it up without trying to get your skin caught. Now I want you to lean back as far as you can while keeping your abs flat. And like here, if it pops out, then that's as far as you go, is here. Okay? All right? So you just want to pay attention to how you're managing pressure. It's the same thing for prolapse. It's the same thing. All the things, it's the same thing. It's pressure management. It's also, so your goal is to learn how to manage pressure properly with proper engagement, knowing how to engage, like how I just showed you. Also, it's strengthening those deep core muscles that help to hold everything in. Okay? So those are the things that you need to learn. Pressure management, strengthening those muscles to hold everything in. All right, guys, I'm going to go now. I know I've been on here a while. I'm going to try to come on more frequently. If you have questions, leave them down in the comments. I might try to answer them next time. I'll try to answer one question at least when I get on here because I know it can take time. But I'll be on here more often, so we'll be able to answer lots of questions. If you want to just get started with some free exercises, check the links in my bio. I have free exercises in my app. You can check that out. I even have a flat core formula masterclass. All that stuff you can take advantage of and learn about all this stuff so that you can get it going, get yourself back to feeling good. I actually was just thinking, I've been working with moms for a long time, okay? And I've worked with thousands of moms, and I know that these exercises are super helpful. I mean, I've seen the testimonials. You can go through, look at all the testimonials if you look it up, or in all my different places where you can look up. And moms have seen results if they do the exercises, but you have to do the exercises. And I want to encourage you, if you need accountability, check out my programs, find a friend, partner, whatever, neighbor to be accountable. Because if you do the exercises, you will see results, but you have to stick to them. Okay. All right. I will see you next time. And thank you so much for joining me. Bye, guys.